and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of On Point. Has the we are getting the feedback, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of On Point. Today we have our great lineup. We have with me my co-host, Mr. Michael Padmore and Mr. Jimmy Eastman. Mr. Tulay is off today. First of all, we want to say Liberia is mourning the loss of one of her greatest children, sons, in Reverend Soiree. The song you just heard, the video you just watched. We lost this young man to a terrible incident of drowning, from what I understand. Up and coming star, very gifted human being. For some reason, we cannot question what God does, but it's a great loss to Liberia and to the entertainment industry. He passed a few days ago. We want to send our condolences to the family and all his fans around the world. Today we have a great show for you. We're going to be talking about issues affecting us politically. We're going to be talking about things affecting our country economically and the whole 9 yards. We're going to be talking about the corruption in the past few months. We talk about corruption in the Norwegian $6 million that were given to Liberia and were either misappropriated or misapplied. We are going to be talking about that. Number two on our list actually would be the legislative project or another 30K for lawmakers. We went through this last time and it has returned. This time with vengeance, we're hearing $30,000, $45,000. We are also going to be talking about the ArcelorMittal and Stowaway MDA stalemate. The Stowaway stalemate. We're going to leave with this because it is very important. The president spoke on this, and we're going to listen briefly to what he said, and then we're going to end with the McGill I guess it's a school feeding program with the picture of the president and McGill on it. This is the new thing in Liberia. We don't know how this came about and what the significance of it. So before we get going, let us start real briefly, guys, before you come and introduce yourself. Let's look at this clip about the president speaking about the Stowaway and Metal and his relationship with some investors that he consider families, their friends, because he does not want them to be spectators in their own country. So let's listen to the briefly, then you guys come in and let's discuss.
Partner and a Liberian I defend Liberian cause. I'm not going into details, but I met ArcelorMittal. We sat down, and the first thing I told them, Liberia will not be spectator in their own country. So up to today, the sole way and this issue is on the table, government looking into it. And the people that have the sole way, the Liberian boy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard briefly the president speaking in Nimba County. When you look at the background of the president, immediately to his right was Senator Prince Johnson. And I think he was addressing the audience, the nation, on the issue of the stalemate. What is going on between Stowaway and Metal Steel? I think we are going to delve into that. I'm Jerome Gayman. With me my two hosts, Mr. Padmore. A little bit about yourself. Where are you and how are you doing this afternoon?
Thank you so much, Mr. Gayman. I am in the sunny Minnesota. Enjoying the good weather. I might throw something on the grill here later on, and pop a couple of drinks. We'll see how it goes. But I'm glad to be here this afternoon, early evening, to talk about all that is Liberia.
Thank you very much. Mr. Eastman, obviously, as your name, you're from the East Coast, Northeast. How you doing? What's going on there?
That's right, Mr. Gayman. This is the man from the East, Jimmy Eastman. I'm here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. It's a very rainy day today, but rain is always good. We need rain. We need water. Water is a resource, so it's good that we have abundance of it. I'm looking forward to this conversation today. There are some issues affecting our nation that require scrutiny, evaluation, and analytics. So I'm very eager to get on with this conversation.
Thank you very much. And obviously, like I said earlier, I'm Jerome Gayman. I'm actually from South Florida. The biggest market around here is the Miami market, followed by West Palm and then Orlando, and I'm right in the middle of it and having a great time. Now, let's look at when we talk about the economic system of a country, when we talk about contractual agreement, concession agreement, that are very key when we're talking about the foreign investment. It is very important that when we sign these agreements stand for something, and that we do it in a way that is a win-win for the country, for our foreign investors, because based on how we carry or how we perform these agreements, it entices other people to come along. It also encourages young investors like Mr. Padmore and yourself to come and invest in our own country. That yes, we are not going to be spectators in our own country, where the economy is totally controlled by foreign investors. So here we are with this. So where you listen to a brief comment by the president. Mr. Padmore, can you lead on this and tell us as an investor, because I know you are a young investor and everybody has interest in it. What does this say about Liberia and what does it mean in this context?
Well, well. So the first thing is that no one goes into investment looking to lose. Everybody looks for some sort of maturity in an investment. They look for security and they look for fair play. When the government of Liberia seems to be doing a double hand deal in between companies, it's always really bad for the country. Really bad sign to investors and those who might be looking to invest. It says that the government is not straightforward. That you can't trust what they say. That you can't even trust what they sign on paper. And in a time when we're really hungry for investment, this should not be the case. This should not be the case at all. The government needs to, the president, instead of just kind of letting things hang out there, he really needs to step in, take charge, and solve this issue as soon as possible. As soon as possible. I mean, you can't have a certain metal there looking to re-sign an extension, and then at the same time the government is giving rights to Solway, to go and explore another mountain in Nima. It sends a very bad message. And
Mr.
that's not the
Eastman,
way.
Mr. Eastman, Mr. Padmore is talking from an investment point of view, an investor's point of view. In investment, I think everybody knows there's something called ROI. Everybody need a hefty return on investment. We all, because the sole purpose of going to business is to make profit. If you can't make profit, there's no reason to go into business. So here we are. Metal Steel is talking about return on investment. The president and some Liberians, because we are encouraging them. I, for one, have always said it. Liberians, we do not have the capital as the foreign investors. So it makes sense for the likes of Eastman and Padmore and Gayman to get together and pool our little resources and say, this is what we want to do. And then we get piece of the pie. It looks like this time around, we have a group of Liberians that have actually gathered some resources and say, we need a piece of the pie. And Metal Steel is saying, no, you have to stick with the contractual agreement, the concession agreement that was signed, even though it was signed in the previous government. And they are saying, well, from my sources in Liberia, they are telling Metal Steel, well, we will want to hold want to uphold the contract that was signed during the Ellen government, but it was signed in a form that gave you a blanket right over the entire mountain. And legally, that is not binding. We will want to have demarcation. You got to have some demarcation. You got to have some boundaries, not the entire Nimba County, the entire mountain. So this is where we are, Mr. Eastman, coming here from. I know you are an independent person who usually cuts it in the middle. How do we deal with this, and how do we settle this?
You know, when he played that little clip for us just now, I remember President Weah iterating those very same words at his inauguration. He reiterated of saying, "We will not be spectators of our own economy." For me, that was music to my ears. That was one of the greatest things I could have heard that day, because for me, Liberia needs to be first. Let's look at what's going on here. We need investment. We need investment for various things, to build the economy, to provide schools, to provide health care. And these investments that we solicit, we have to be very careful. A company that wants to extract resources from us, I don't know if you can consider that. I was on with some of the other foreign direct investment, because they are taking our minerals. There are no stages of production. They're simply taking it from the ground. It's a very capital intensive project. In other words, they bring their own machinery. They don't employ that many people because it requires machinery more than manual labor. And they take it out. And how much do we really benefit? Oh, now, the reason we get in these deals is because we need capital. We need money to do things. But are some of these deals right for us? So the president, in his wisdom, looked at it, and you're right. This they got a blank check. Why are they permitted to do? In fact, there was part of the deal they even leased the whole port of Buchanan to them. That means they have sole control over the port. Why would you even think about giving a company control over one of your national ports? So the idea is that, is this deal worth it? I don't care how strapped we are for cash. We cannot go in bad deals. And if that will require being hungry some days, it might. Because if we get in these deals that we get little or nothing out, then we're going to be at the short end. So in waltzes Solway. And Solway too wants to just start exploring for resources, but they're exploring in a territory already demarcated for ArcelorMittal. So why are these conflicting? To me, it shouldn't be a big conflict, because the contract should dictate what happens. And just like you were saying, or like Michael was saying, we shouldn't be a country that reneges on our contractual agreements. Integrity is at stake. We have to be my yes is my yes and my no is my no. But these bad deals that get us in this mess, we have to find a way to avoid them, because they come back and bite us. Okay, I was never in favor of this ArcelorMittal deal in the first place. I know we're strapped for cash, but if you're taking minerals out of this country and it's not going out through any stages of production, it's not a good deal. We lose.
Well,
so we should make that a criteria, that even if it can't go through any stages of production, then it has to bring about community development to those targeted areas. But let me tell you what's going on in past histories. There were those that received kickbacks, complimentary gifts to okay these deals, and the people out of Liberia suffer in the end. So We can't allow ourselves to keep making the same mistakes over and over. Just because the past regime did it doesn't mean this regime should do it. We need to stop giving any excuse about past practices. We want new practices, and that's the only way Liberia is going to change, with different practices, different mentality, and different targets for development.
Great. Mr. Padmore,
Yes.
I just added onto my own portfolio, graduated from Real Estate School. And one of the things that we went over the last 6 months was something they call status of fraud, which is contracts that are enforceable by law. And there are times the contracts are written in such a way that it violates even the constitution of the nation. And I'm going to give you an example. If you wrote a contract in a way, according to the international community, that 66 of the 68 contractual agreement, concession agreement in Liberia were anti-Liberia, so much so that they think that it was fraud, it was fraudulent. So those contracts in the court of law, international law, cannot be enforceable by all right. They may ask you to go and renegotiate it, and that it makes sense. For instance, you cannot read a concession agreement where you block out all Liberians or anybody and say you got the entire mountain or the entire county. You cannot do that. These are unenforceable laws. They violate the rights of other folks. And if it were in this country, in the United States or in the West, that's why we have antitrust laws. That if you want to be manipulative, you want to be a conglomerate and lock everybody outside the market, the Federal and Trade Commission have the right to break up and say, listen, you remember in the 80s, we had Southern Bell and the Bells and all of that. And they broke the AT&T up and said, listen, you can't do this. And they broke it up into segments. Same thing here. Now, before you go into that, the president personalized it though. He says, these folks, these young folks, or these gentlemen and women that have come together are Liberians that want to explore as well. They also have right to this. I cannot disagree when he said, I know them, they are my friends, and I have to protect their interest. I think he was headed the right way until he said they are my friends. Mr. Padmore.
So there's a couple of things here. I think when we start talking about, that they are Liberians, well, first we have to slow down because no one has done the extensive investigation yet. Who's doing the financing? Who's really calling the shots? Okay? How many Liberians do you know can put together enough to start such a mining concession? So that's the first thing I will slow down on. The second thing here is, look, if we feel that something is illegal, the government needs to take it to court. There's a pathway to get things right. One is to just bully, to just say, no, we the government, we can do what we want to do. And so now we're just going to bully you, okay? ArcelorMittal has invested billions of dollars into Liberia. Is Liberia benefiting the most? No. We know that. And that's not only ArcelorMittal, that's a bunch of concessions across Liberia. Okay? If the government wants to recall all those, sit down and renegotiate, then they should do that in good faith. If the government wants to recall all those, sit down to just go ahead and to
Somebody, okay.
Okay, there we go. So, but to just introduce another player into the field, and say, well, these are my, I have to protect them, then why are we acting like to say we only get one mountain in Liberia? That's another question, And then I hear, so we're supposed to build 500 housing units. There's been an issue about ArcelorMittal and the housing units. It's like almost like a game is being played right now. And I feel like, based on the history of Liberia, Liberians are the pawns in this game. And so we really need to be careful how we step forward with this. A settlement can pack up and leave tomorrow. Would it really change a lot for a settlement? Maybe not. But other countries, other companies that are looking at investing in Liberia, that will mean a lot to them. And might hurt Liberia in the long run. So if we're going to do this, we need to do this the right way. If the concession wasn't written properly and it borderlines on illegal, then we need to recall the concession, sit down with a settlement and do it the right way. That's all, so that everybody walks away feeling like they have a fair deal. At this point, I don't think a settlement feel they have a fair deal. You're still muted, Mr. Miller.
Okay. Mr. Padmore touched on something very important, which was this is where we are. The government and the people, where the people of NIMBA, they filed a grievance against Metal Steel, including the people from Grand Bassa and Bon County, that in the agreement, this company was supposed to operate in stages or in phases. And in phase one, they were supposed to revamp the entire the former Lamco concession area, building homes and hospitals and schools, and electrification and all of that. That has not happened in the past, almost 10 years. Going into the third of the fifth, which was supposed to be 15 years, going into the last thirds of the contract, they want to go to phase two, which is complete operation and everything else. And the government called them and said, listen, we cannot go to phase two. Everything that was promised in phase one have not been done, not even a quarter of what you promised. Based on this, everything we return to basically status quo until you can meet those obligations. And they agreed to pay a fine for reneging on their agreements. So here we are. Another company is on the scene and saying, listen, we are not encroaching on where you are, but when you're talking about the railway that belongs to Liberia, the seaport of Bassa that belongs to Liberia, the seaport is the second largest seaport in the country that we have. We have LAC, the Liberian Agriculture Company, one of the, I think, second or third largest rubber company in the country that ships out of that port. Everybody else ships out of the port. Yet and still, Metal Steel want total control of the seaport, the railway, and the entire mountain section in Nimba, to which the Liberian people are saying, no, you cannot have exclusive right on these things. You can have a collaborative right where we can also use the railway and the seaport. So here we are. It is a corporation that's saying our second half, for us to go to phase two, we need an exclusive right on all of these, and the government is saying no. So here we are, Mr. Eastman. Should we give these people the exclusive right to go to phase two when they have not even realized and live up to the commitment made in phase one?
Jerome, that's not the first time Liberia has made bad deals. But what a lot of times these bad deals, where they stem from, is sometimes your back is against the wall. When we signed that deal with Firestone, that was not a favorable deal for Liberia, where you gave them 1 million acres at $1 a day, no $1 a year. That was crazy. But we were facing liquidation. We owed the Great Britain a serious debt, and we couldn't pay. It was a bad loan, and from one bad loan to the other, we're going to see that there's several bad deals been made for Liberia. Just recently, we leased the fishing rights to the Chinese, and the European commissioner, the commissioner for the European Economic Community, he decried. He said, why would you give a major national entity like China the permissions to to fish in your territorial waters. Oh, we got a few little canoes, few little, we call them fanti boats. You're giving these guys with these huge tankers access to your natural resource, which are fish, our marine life, all that is natural resources. He had to decry. He wasn't even a Liberian, and he said, "Why would you even do that?" But that was signed in the last administration. This Middle deal, no way we should give them exclusive rights. What are they giving? What is Liberia gaining from giving somebody exclusive rights? But notwithstanding, these things can be rewritten. I remember Steve Tobin renegotiated that Firestone deal. We'll have to, just like you pointed out, some of these deals, if they're outrageous and it almost unlawful, we'll have to renegotiate them. And it may show a bit of bad faith, but we can't allow ourselves to be exploited like that. It doesn't matter. I'm a Liberia first person. I don't mind making somebody else sad if Liberia is going to be helped. So we will have to renegotiate that deal. We should not give anybody exclusive rights to our ports, to railroads, unless they're going to give us something that's worthwhile. We don't see that. But here, another thing you mentioned, this Tulay company, we understand they're a Russian-backed company as well. There's hands in the pie. All hands in the pie. I'm only interested in what Liberia gets out of this. And I want to question my that sometimes this money don't. Why I say don't? Because we don't see the money. We don't know what happens. Let them bring about community development. Let them build some vocational schools. Let them promise to educate a certain amount of people. Let them say they're going to install a sewer system or water system in that community that will feed. Let's go for something that we will see, because sometimes we don't see the money. So if we're going to be making these deals, I think we need to, we owe it to the community itself that they must show their development in the community, not just to cash. So that's my take. If they feel bad, they feel bad, but Liberia shouldn't lose.
Great. Before we go to the next topic here, let me recognize a few folks here. Mr. Danny Phillips on here trending. Emmanuel Jackson. Thank you very much for tuning in. Your comments have been read, and we understand some of you have expertise in different areas, and your comments are welcome. Thank you very much for chiming in, and please continue to share this show. This is a new time. We understand we have gone from 6 o'clock to 8. It's going to take a while from 6 o'clock to 6, from 4 to 6. So there's a 2-hour gap. We appreciate you following us, and hopefully we can continue to share this show and let our folks know that we have a new time. Mr. Padmore, you need to adjust your camera. But Mr. Eastman, just before we go to the next topic here, which is almost similar to what we are talking about here. We are talking about the next one should be the Norwegian. A few months ago, maybe a year or so ago, we read that we got about $6 million from the Norwegian government for a particular purpose in Liberia. And for some reason, that money, I wouldn't say was squandered, but it was used. That means it was maybe not used for the purpose intended. When these things happen, there are two remedies. You own up to it, and then a payment plan as to how that money needed to be replaced. Or usually, you can say we are going to now either reinvest or put that money back into the line item to be used for the purpose for which it was intended. If not, then the money has to be reimbursed. Or your take on the Norwegian $6 million saga?
You know, I heard somebody up in upper government say, "You dig hole to cover hole." I am against this sort of thinking. If you have funds allocated for a particular project, especially if it's donor money, you see, donors have to report on the progress of that project. If it's supposed to transform Liberia, for instance, that Norwegian money was toward the LEC project. And if it's to transform the Liberia by providing more electricity, making available more electricity in the country, and you take that money and you do something else with it, they still need to report to the people. So what they'll say, well, what happened to our investment in electricity in Liberia? Has Liberia changed? And they say, no, they didn't do what we gave them the money for. We can't continue doing this. We do this a lot. I've been hearing this on different projects, taking money from the census to do something else with, taking money from here. It is as if you're not able to manage your budget, because that is why you're borrowing from here, from this project, because you're really not borrowing, handling your budget, and it needs a different approach. You can't keep on digging hole to cover hole. As you can see, this is wearing down our partners. This is wearing down the investors. They're not. It's not a way to go. It's not acceptable financial practice. It's not. In emergencies, in times when you're strapped for some calamity, it's a little bit different. And by right, you should have emergency funds. But anyway, but as a regular practice, whenever you shortchange on year, then you take money from this other project, that is not the way to financial management of country. That's not how you do it. So we need to show a lot more discipline. There are a lot of demands on the limited cash we have, but this approach is not a healthy approach to do it, because, and here's the reason why: when you identify projects that's supposed to bring about some kind of economic benefit in the country, some kind of transformation, and I'm more into transformation than growth. I don't believe anything just growing, but let's change our people's lives. Okay, so if this project is identified to transform Liberia, and then down the road you can't pay salaries, or down the road then you take that money, what happens to the project? And some of these projects you've already spent some money on it. So what happens now? You lose on both ends. Now you can't do the project. You can't transform Liberia. You can't. The project what it's supposed to do can't be done. And then you're still looking for funds here and there. A lot of these projects were supposed to bring about more revenue, bring about more money circulation, bring about more access to facilities that people can maybe do business. You have forgotten the whole business case when you take out the money and use it for some other purpose. So it is not a practice that is a healthy practice, because you defeat all your projects, all the things you plan to do. By you doing things like this, you defeat them. So what kind of planning do you have? You're back to square zero.
Well, we want to welcome Dr. Batum Kula. Thank you for your comment. Elona Bagley, she's calling from, actually she's tuning in from Delaware. Thank you very much for tuning in. When we are talking about, when I was part of the federal government with the immigrant and children funds here in Florida, where we did, it is a law that when it comes to the expenditure, salary comes number one. Legally, that's what happens. You have to make payroll, and then your local taxes, and then your federal tax in that order. So if everything fell apart, you owe it to your employees, number one, to pay your employees. And then you pay your local taxes, because your local roads, your water and sewage, your utilities, all of these things are local, so you have to pay those taxes. And then we pay the federal government last in that order. So I understand when they say to some degree that we are short of salary, we remove line items from whatever LEC to pay salary. And I like the fact that they didn't shy away from it, but they are putting that money back into the budget. There's a line item in the present budget as a debt, which is only out of your responsibility, and then reimbursing those who you owe the money to. And then if they do agree to refund you, that's a whole different process. So what we are looking at here is, from what I understand from our sources, it was during the time where there was a major shortfall in the budget where salaries could not be met. And my question to them was, so what happened to the taxes from the corporations and the concession agreement? Then they sent me a piece of paper, they sent me some documentation that show that in the previous government, what they have done is that most of the corporations have paid taxes up to 3-4 years in advance.
Yep.
So that leaves the present government coming in actual, desperation. You just imagine you are taking cash advance on the concession agreement years in advance. So basically, you are coming in, and you got no tax basis, especially when you are doing the turnover, and nobody told you that, listen, this is where you get $24 million, $25 million. A monthly budget in recurring expenditure, which is just absolutely terrible for our country, which is about 80% of the total budget that goes on recurring expenses, that's salary and all of that. So
but Mr. Gayman, that goes back to my point that they got in these deals in the first place. They got in bed with these people because they were desperate. They needed money. And what shows how desperate they were, they borrowed on future revenue, right? Future payment. Yeah. So it showed how desperately they needed the money. But here's what I don't understand, Mr. Gayman. Last year, or was it last year, they reported a budget surplus. I don't understand how you're borrowing from year to take from this project, to put it on this project, but then you report a budget surplus. There's something fuzzy that it doesn't make any sense to me. Because if you're having to do what they're doing by shuffling around, taking money from here, means you have a shortfall, you have a deficit in your budget. How can you dare report a surplus? And why report a surplus? Because I actually, if you've been a corporate man for a long time, when you report a surplus, it means you did something wrong, really. Unless something happened, prices just went astronomically high in one industry, and you got some windfall profits, which not the case in Liberia. But it means that you didn't budget properly. That's why you got surplus money. You didn't do your budgeting correctly. Okay, that's what it means. So it's not something to boast about. It means a lack of proper planning. But what is good is when you see a revenue grow, and as due to growth in revenue, then you get a surplus. Fine, But examine that surplus, what they report. No, we cannot keep on forecasting salaries. And then when it's time to pay it, then we take money from other projects to pay the salaries. No, that doesn't work. I understand it's tough, but that's when you have to make the tough decisions. But that doesn't work.
Mr. Padmore, here we are. I have to give you, and I'm singing your praises everywhere you go. And this is strange because you're an ANC guy.
Yes, I am.
And I'm a Cedician. But the idea that you would be number 2 on our list. The first guy that contacted me was this young man they call, I think, Armstrong Japa.
Mm-hmm.
Armstrong Japa believes in this agricultural thing, and he wants only Liberians to invest, bringing Liberians together. So within the next 10 years, Liberia, he would be one of the major contributor and competitor to the Lebanese and the India for importing rice. You were the second Liberian that I spoke with that actually gone home on bringing Liberians together, no matter how much you have, but join the table, let's put our resources together and take on some major issues. And you are serious that we don't have all the money, but there's no need to bring in foreign investors here. This is Liberia made. So with this being, I mean, I gotta give you your flower while you're still here. And the same thing with Mr. Japa. Now here we are. We don't have something called in this country, because I'm into, public policy and city and all of that. We don't have something called property identification system in Liberia. Even when I went to register my home, I bought that land in 2005. Nobody contacted me about taxes on it until I wanted to build a house, and then they find out, how long you had this land and all of that. And then they estimated how much. So nobody knew. Now, how do we remedy that? Because by having the property identification system, you are talking about growing your revenue base.
Yeah.
Because you know how many homes are being built, how many homes are in the country, how many homes are in the city. We don't have that. We don't know how many homes are in Monrovia. So our tax base is out of whack. How do we address this?
Well, that's where the census comes into play. A lot of people think that census is only the counting of the people. No. The census base takes into account all those things. Where poverty, how many people in a certain location, how many hospitals in that location, how many schools in that location. All those things, the census, the whole government feeds off the census. The whole government drives policy off the census. LRA can only be effective if there is a census, an accurate census done across the country. Then LRA can step in, and off that census, they can do their mapping. You know how it goes here in America. Every single property has a number. You can go into any county, in any place in the US, you can pop in that number and will show you the exact location of that property, who has owned it, and they will trace it all the way back as it has changed ownership. Everything. It's just, and we can still do it. We are an old country, but we are a young country. We've been around for a long time, but we haven't done a lot of growing. And so because of that, we have the opportunity to grow. We do have it. And we have the opportunity to grow properly. And that's where those things will come in. It takes insight and innovation. A government with a leader with vision that knows those things and know how to put the proper people in place to do those things. For the past, 16, 17 years, Liberia has just been putting out fires. That's what the government does. The government dig hole to cover hole. All we're trying to do, we're trying to make it to the next month's salary. You can't live like that. You can't live, how do we call it here? How do we call it here? We call it hand to mouth. We live on paycheck to paycheck. That's how you call it in the US. You can't prosper. You can't plan. You can't invest. You can't do it. When you live paycheck to paycheck, you're just trying to make next month rent. And it seems like that's how Liberia is. That's how Liberia has been operating for the last 16 years. And we can't do that. At a certain point in time, we need a change. We need that innovative group of leaders that will come in and say, no, this is how it needs to be done. Hopefully that's what will come 2023.
Well, before we go to the next topic here, Mr. Eastman, I have an online friend. Most of you folks because of the internet, we have never met in person, but we are friends and brothers. Just like you and I have never met, Mr. Padmore, I have never met in person. My friend, Mr. Famula, and I, we always on here. And the same thing we are talking about here. I was in Monrovia lately, and it looks like Monrovia is now joining Smell New Taste, the whole thing. Okay, there is no city planning. There's nothing, and it looks like we are continuing the same thing. When you go from where my property is in Tingle Village to everywhere else. By the time you turn out, you are gone from one community to the next. No city planning, no block system, no numbering system. I still don't know where I live in Tingle Village when I go. I can only tell you how to get there, but I can't. And as we are, but the main thing here is we have all these opposition. When I go to these meetings and I ask the communists of the world, the workers of the world, and prior to that was Mr. Bronsky. There are two things. Nobody is coming and saying, this is what I'm going to do to address this particular issue. On this particular issue, the last time Bronsky and I had an argument, a disagreement, two guys from Basel, and I said, I think we should begin with the unitary system in Liberia. Let's address this. And Bronsky had no idea or had no interest in addressing the unitary system that gave absolute power to the president in Liberia. And I said, Honorable Bronsky, we need
Jerome,
to
you're breaking up.
from the president and go to some quasi-federal system, revenue sharing, all of these to address. He had no interest. He wanted that absolute power. Up to now, nobody is addressing the things we are talking about.
You are breaking up a lot. You said I couldn't understand after you said something about the unitary system.
Yes.
You were breaking up. We couldn't understand.
Okay. Mr. Padmore, did you get me?
Yeah, I got you, but yeah.
Okay.
But if
Okay,
you
so
go
what
ahead,
I'm
let's
saying
get
here,
it for Mr. Eastman, I'll be good.
okay, we are talking about the property identification system that is the lifeblood of any city, of any county, or any country. We don't have that. Same thing with the unitary system in Liberia that gives the president absolute power. You getting me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. The unitary system in Liberia makes the president basically an emperor. He has absolute power. He basically determines who dies and who lives. And my question to Mr. Bronsky at the time was, what are you going to do as a lawyer to introduce or remedy this particular issue about the unitary system that gave the president so much power? How do we divest the power? Can we go to some quasi-federal system where the counties and the sub-region do revenue sharing, take some of the power from the president? Bronsky had no interest in that.
Well, the first question I asked, this unitary system you reference, is it constitutional? Is it written in the Constitution? Now, I know there's been a concentration of power and resources in the Monrovia, and we have discussed that we definitely need to spread that throughout the counties. Don't make Monrovia, the center of the universe, so to speak. But what you talk about, the president having powers like that, is that constitutional? Because the president powers are spelled out in the Constitution, right? And so are the legislatures and the judiciary. Now, the legislature is oversight to what the executive does. So how is it that this power is this ultimate power is given to the president if it's not constitutional, unless somebody is not doing their role, somebody has capitulated, or they've just given up their power and allowed the president to usurp theirs. So if it's not constitutional, we can fix it. But I don't know how to address something that is not in the Constitution. But definitely decentralization has been a topic. And here's why decentralization is very necessary. Depending on everything coming from Monrovia to the various counties, that's a lot of bureaucracy. That's a lot of time span. If a lot of local problems, if we empower our local city governments and officials to act on local issues, they could become very more efficient instead of waiting for to hear from Monrovia. But that is complex, and we have to figure out how to do it. But definitely, we've seen that if we continue making Monrovia, everything has to be in Monrovia. We will not be able to develop as fast as we want to. So decentralization has to be part of our planning. But this unitary power is not constitutional. I don't know why. Why are we practicing it then?
Well, Mr. Padmore, I think this is something that we need to bring maybe a constitutional scholar or lawyer like Mr. J. Ware and somebody else on this show to address it. But because I think when we in this country we have they have the federal system where everything is based on revenue sharing. We elect our city mayor, city council, our county commissioners, we elect all of those folks, and whatever money is raised in the state, a percentage of that money stays locally, and then we make contribution to the federal government. We share revenue, we share responsibilities. Mm-hmm. We got county road, we got city, we got all of these things: city park, county park, federal highway, local. We have all of these things, but in Liberia we don't. So for that to happen, we have to elect our superintendent. That is basically like the governor here. The governor will have to be elected. They will have city government, they will have county government, and we'll have city commissioners elected, all of those things. But what that does is it takes power away from Monrovia and it puts it in the hands of the folks. And this is what the folks there don't want to do. So we spend a lot of time, and I think this is a whole show we got to go back to. But let's go to the third one here. Let pivot to something that keeps coming up, and politicians are running away from it like a plague, like the Ebola. But yet and still, their hands are in the pot. We are talking about $30,000. The 30K that put Dara Dillon in trouble and many of the other folks in trouble last year have returned. This time, they upped the numbers. We heard that not only did they appropriate $30,000 to themselves, they appropriated extra $50,000 to themselves and $45,000 for new cars. They signed it, and then some said, I'm going to take ownership. I got my money in there. And some say, like Mr. Dillon say, I didn't do it, even though I signed for it. It's there, but I've not gotten it. And show me proof that I got the money. Mr. Padmore, here we are again. This like deja vu all over. It looks like the more we elect new people, the more they stay the same.
So there are a couple of things we need to do the audience justice with. Is where is this coming from? We never heard about legislators receiving money to complete projects during the Padmore time, Torba, even though that was not, we never saw that. Even government implemented projects. Lands and Mines, Public Works didn't want King to implement that project. But all of a sudden, we see this coming up. And when I ask people, they tell me that this was something that was created in the legislature by the then opposition, which is the CDC. Apparently, what was happening was that when the lawmakers were appropriate money for projects, when those projects were completed, credit was given to the president. It was seen as a presidential project. And it seemed as if to the people, the lawmakers were not doing anything. Instead of educating their constituents on how government works and that they indeed are doing something, like if I go to my district and tell you, okay, if you elect me, I will go there and fight so that we can have road going from here to over there. And when I go there and that road is implemented, even if the president comes to dedicate that road, you need to know that I, as a lawmaker, had to fight to put that in the budget. Instead of doing that, they decided, no, since the president is taking all the glory, what we'll do is we'll appropriate money to ourselves and we'll use that money to carry our personal project in our district, and then we will dedicate those projects. As far as I'm concerned, it was unconstitutional then. It's unconstitutional now. There's nowhere in the Constitution where it says that lawmakers are supposed to appropriate money onto themselves besides their salary. And even when it comes to their salary, the Constitution states exactly how that works. Okay? But we have this, it is continuing. People are getting rich of it. They are basically stealing the money, the people's money, and giving the people's pennies. You know? And it goes beyond that because it's a slippery hill that you get on. Once you start that, then you add $50,000 to it, and then you say, okay, every 3 years we'll buy a $50,000 car, and just go slippery slope. Basically that, you know. And the people, I like the fact that people are speaking out about it. I think it should be much more than that. I really think people need to get into the streets. They need to. The Constitution says that you can, that if you are not satisfied, you can get into the streets and you can address your lawmakers. It says it very clearly. And I think people need to do that. They need to hear from us. They really do.
And Mr. Eastman, what Mr. Padmore is suggesting here cuts across party lines. So we not this is they have nothing to do with CDC, ANC, Unity Party, because they are all swimming in this money. You saw the 2020 election when the opposition won almost every seat. And we were, you know, those of us who are seditious, we were downhearted, and the opposition were clapping that changes were coming. And from 30,000, that actually it was 15,000 when we were complaining. With the influx of the new folks, it went from 15,000 to 45,000 to 50,000. And so when you add it, we're talking about close to maybe $100 grand, 45,000 for a brand new car, then $30,000 for a legislative project, and then I'm hearing another $50,000 for projects. I mean, this is insane. I never heard anything like that, and it looks like the more we change these people, so Michael may have a point. Seditians and ANC folks and Unity Party folks from the bottom, we ought to just get to the street and say, listen, you cannot make this much money off the people that you say you're representing. Everybody said the masses, we represent the masses. But I mean, we are talking about huge sum of money here.
Mr. Gayman, you are completely right, and so is Michael. What this other $30,000 is essentially is a bonus, addition to their salary. Do we go over here? Do we go to senators and congressmen and tell them, my child hungry, please give me $5? Or my child can't go to school, please help me pay my school fee? We don't go. That's not their job. We've been doing this for some time, but this is what has skewed things in the wrong direction. That is not their duty. Okay? They're there to enact laws, to push programs that will positively affect their constituents. They are not supposed to be carrying out those projects. And let me tell you, economically, it doesn't make sense. And I'll tell you why. When you're taking small amount of money here, and identifying one little good deed here, I say good deeds, maybe you put a bathroom here, maybe you fix the fence over here. You do these little small projects. In the end, you have they don't make as big as an impact. When you're identifying projects to do, you have to do a statistical analysis. You have to know which project to target. Not these small. These small projects should come out of their salaries. It should be their own contribution to the community. It shouldn't be the government giving them money to do these things. No. If you want to identify a home that needs, or a business person that needs, you can go right ahead and do it, but that should come from your salaries. Because if government has to appropriate this money, then we need to get the biggest impact for every money. Money is scarce. So we have to make the most impact for every penny we send. We can't think that this senator can send somebody $2,000 here, and that is good for the country. No, 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 no. I would have taken that $2,000 and perhaps improve the sewer system in that whole area. Okay, that is how you improve everybody. But just doing these individuals, no, no, no. And they don't have the tools. Are they doing any analytics to know which projects they should target? No, this is all them. And if it's all them, it should come from their pocket. We're not here to glorify our representatives. This is another bad concept. Our representatives are servants. They're not supposed to be glorified. Oh, yeah, this man did this. No, 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 no. We're not here to give them money so they can glorify themselves. They're supposed to, if you want to take this job, it's a sacrificial job. You will be working for the people and you get little or nothing. That is the job you sign up for. But we got it backwards. We when we get them elected, they're on top of the people, and we ordinary people, we the servants to them. That they can increase their salary tenfold, making more than from professionals. And what is Liberia gaining from them? At least doctors, we know doctors are curing us. Engineers, we know they're building roads. Businessmen, we know they're providing jobs. What are these big salaries for these representatives doing? What are they doing? Are they changing? Are they moving the needle? Liberia since 1990 is struggling. The economy is not even $1 billion. There's nothing being done to improve the welfare of the people. They will be paying these people a whole lot of money. It's a ripoff. And it should. I bet you, if somebody really want to look, they can find that it's unconstitutional. Okay, if you want to do projects in these counties, let's do a feasibility study. Let's see how we best can spend that money. Not putting it in your pocket for you to do help.
Let me come in here for a second. Just to piggyback on what Mr. Eastman was saying. Okay, the executive is the one that spends the money. There's a mechanism in place for the executive branch to be audited. Okay? There is no mechanism in place to audit this $30,000. There's none. It does not exist. So then how do you spend the people's money without the ability to be audited? There's the other when you represent from Bassa County, I forgot his name. He went and built a flagpole in front of the school. Bassa High, he said, I own a $30,000 there. What kind of trouble is this? You know? And nobody can question him. You know? Other people build other things. But none of them have ever come back to the people and say, look, yeah, it's a complete breakdown of the $30,000 I was giving. You know? And this is why they shouldn't be spending money.
Very good. That's the other thing. It is not accounted for.
Yeah.
What kind of government money isn't accounted for?
But
all your accounting practices, Mr. Gayman, what kind of government money is not accounted for?
But not only that, but multiply that over 6 years. Okay. You get 45,000, 30,000, 50,000. That's about maybe $120,000. Multiply that by 6 years, and then you are making $20,000 a month. Okay. You multiply that by 6 years. So this is. But let me recognize Stephen Sly, Brian Yanfoy. We talk about Alex Nimlin. I see here Mark Commander. Thank you very much for tuning in and sharing. We'll go to the comments. Real quick before we go to comments, I know we're running out of time. Let's go to something that is trending in Liberia here. It is called the feeding program, school feeding program. And this is my first time seeing it, but I'm seeing either a bag of rice or a bag of gari or a bag of something with the photo of the president and Mr. McGill on this. And it is supposed to be the McGill school feeding program. I have not done the research myself. I don't know what does this entail, but I've seen the photograph of either the rice or the gari bag with the president's photograph and McGill. They say the McGill feeding program. What do you know about this, and what's the essence of this? Start with you, Mr. Eastman.
Wow, this my first. For me, when it comes to school feeding program, I find that essential. A lot of our youth go to school hungry. I support some people in Liberia, and there's some many of the children, they say they don't go with lunch money. So by providing meals to these children, I think it's one of the most wonderful things we can do for our kids. We want our kids' educational environment as comfortable as possible. And because of the poverty in our nature, many kids are there all day without eating. So this is wonderful to bring food to children, to distribute food to all the government schools in the country. But this program, my first hearing of it, one thing I don't understand, how far distributed, how do they go about selecting which schools to get it? Is this sustainable? Is this something that will continue? A lot of times when we make projects, we don't look at the sustainability of the project. Let's do this, and it's good. It lasts for 1 year, maybe a couple of months, and it's dead. We need to engage in things that are sustainable, not that will just be cosmetic for now. I think this is a wonderful idea. I don't know about the personal adding the faces to the bags. I would have just say a gift from Liberia, but it's a wonderful idea. But are you going to sustain this? How long is this going to last? And if this is not sustainable, then maybe another project should have been identified that could have been more beneficial to more kids, But bringing food for our children, I'm not vexed with anybody about that. I think we definitely should be able to do it. We need to do it. It is one of the things we have to do. Besides giving free education from K to 12, we need to be able to give those children at least one little bit of a lunch that day. That will help them in their learning environment. That should be one of the number one goals. I think for me, education is the number one priority for Liberia. Agriculture, all those other things are fine, but let's get our kids. Let's give them a future, okay? And the only way we can guarantee a future is getting them educated and where they need to be to tackle the challenges of tomorrow.
Great. Mr. Padmore, and I'm coming back to this because this is public policy again, and I don't want to sound like we are professors here, but this is why when we say public policy, the importance of this. In this country, when we say America supply the world with food, when you talk about WIC, which is women, infant, and children, the school feeding program, the reason they are sustained is because of agriculture. What the government does not own farm. Government does not do farming. Government shouldn't do farming. What they do is they guarantee that if Mr. Padmore grows his pineapple, grows his beans and rice, we used to have the LPMC back then. We will buy in bulk from Mr. Padmore, and we will turn around and redistribute those food to the different school programs to feed the people, to feed the sick, to feed the poor, and to make sure that the children grow healthy. They go to school, that they get fed. So that's how you sustain something of this nature. It has to be legislated. It has to be a law. I understand that CDC wants to do well. They want to be popular. They want to win the election. But while this is good, it is only temporary. It has to be passed through the legislative processes to say, listen, this is what we want to do. It is necessary. This is how we should do it. And this is what we will need for it to be done. Then it becomes part of the agenda. It becomes part of the budgetary process. thinkers like you and myself, everybody go into it and say, what is the best practice? Let's go to the United States, Ghana, other places where they are doing it. How are they doing it? What are the obstacles? What are the successes they have done? So we don't have those pitfalls. So while the concept is good, I shy a little bit from personalizing it by putting your pictures on it. So when Michael Padmore becomes president or director, what he puts his picture on it too. So while it is a great idea, I think it rubs me a little. As much as I support the president, I think they should go further than what they're doing. Mr. Padmore, charming.
So this is Liberia in a nutshell. You know, we want great things. We have an idea on what we want, but we have no idea how to go about it. Okay, I don't know how old you gentlemen are, but before 1980, there was a school feeding program. You know, there was a school feeding program. I went to Catholic school. I remember eating Catholic peas. You know, I was still in high school after the war, and WFP instrumented a school feeding program. We used to go to school and eat our beans. You know, so the concept that children need to be fed in order for them to learn that God got to have something in it is a universal accepted concept. How do we go about it? As the president, even if you are the chief of staff, you go to the president, say, look, we really need to do this. Let's put this in the budget. Let's write a letter to the legislature and see if they can work on an act to have this placed in the budget. But you don't go that way. You go by the way of politics. You go and say, oh, we're gonna take political advantage of this. We'll get somebody to produce this. We'll put our picture on it, and then we'll give it to the people, and the people eating it. Tomorrow, when we come for a vote, we'll say, y'all remember who fed y'all? Y'all remember who fed your children? And you have that. And we have to be bigger than that. We have to be bigger. You can still look if the president instruments a school feeding program, he can still claim and say this was my idea. You don't gotta put your picture on it. You don't have to simplify it that way. You can still say this was my idea, and we push the legislature and we put it in the budget, and they finally give it to them. So my people, yeah, you're full here. Fine. But you take it, you put your picture on it, you put my girl picture on it. Now I hear my girl got scholarship, the scholarship fund from county to county. So when he go one county, right, when my girl enters Banga, the whole Banga can be upside down. See all the school children coming. Why? Because they want scholarship from my girl. That's how we have done. How much money my girl get? Let's be honest. I don't want to be political today, but how much money my girl get? We all know this is public fund. We all real. This is public fund. You're taking the people money and you're giving it back to them as if it is your money. And you helping and you're doing it a favor. We have to be bigger than this. That's the only way we'll grow. And that's the only way we'll do anything in our country. You know? So I mean, it doesn't matter. This is not a CDC problem. You know, UP did it when they were there. Chatila did it when he was there. You know, it's a long, it's a long-winded thing. Go back to Todman time. They did it when they were there. But at some point in time, we have to rise up and say, enough is enough.
Excellent.
Enough is enough. Let's put our children first.
Excellent. We're running out of time. Let's go to reading some of the comments. Mr. Eastman, can you read 3? Mr. Padmore, can you read 3? Let's comment and then we'll close up. Let's go.
Well, this is new. This comes from reincarnated Leo Davaka. Vote of confidence. France new program underway to revive Liberia's rice sector. Mm-hmm. The government of the French Republic, through its embassy near Monrovia, says its State Department agency, Agence Française de Développement, is working on new programs for Liberia's agriculture sector. The revival of the rice program. French ambassador to Liberia, His Excellency Mr. Michel Roux, told a gathering of Liberian dignitaries and private sector actors on Thursday during the French Independence Day program that his country remains a partner to Liberia. Indeed, France is not just only a political partner, but has a development partner of Liberia, fully supporting the national strategy of the PAPD. So, in short, it looks like France is going to, I don't see any amount here, but France wants to pump a lot of money in our agricultural sector. Now, I only want to say that this works when you have a system, a good system in place to absorb those funds. It can't be ad hoc. It can't be who my friends are. You have to tell the people what the criteria is, help them meet those criteria, get them set up. A lot of it will have to be subsistence farming is not how we're going to feed ourselves. No. We're going to have collaborative farming, to say the least. So we have to organize ourselves in groups to make a program like this effective. So this is wonderful, but it requires groundwork. It requires organization. It requires spreading knowledge and getting people enlightened to how they can take advantage of this program. So this is excellent. So that's one of the comments today. And then Stephen Johnson said, McGill is a sudden wealthy man 5 years later. LOL. It is like he found the lost treasure at the Ministry of State. Let's see another comment. Stephen Johnson, on the school feeding program, politicians shouldn't use it as a weapon and with the intent to trade rice for votes. You cannot have public officials looting state resources and giving peanuts to the impoverished masses. Here's another one. Someone to you, Padmore. Padmore, Mr. Phillips, Denny Duor Phillips says, Mr. Padmore, innovation does not have to come from a leader. Liberia has engineers, doctors, and other professionals who could innovate by starting something in the private sector. The West is prosperous because of its citizens start business that employ thousands of people. You want to address that, Mr. Padmore?
Absolutely.
Mr. Padmore, address that and then read through your own.
Okay. I totally agree. The issue here is that in the West, we have something called the Small Business Administration. The government actually funds these small business administrations because the government understands small business drives the economy, right? So first you have an educated workforce, and then two, when you have engineers, doctors, all these people that come up with ideas, the federal government steps in and says, look, through the Small Business Administration, we'll fund you. We'll give you a loan. We'll give you a non-interest loan. The government will actually, you know what? That money is a little much. The bank doesn't want to give you a loan. The government will step in and say, you know what? We will back that loan. If this project goes through and this man is not successful, bank, we will step in and pay that money back. The federal government does all these things. There has to be. It's not just about doctors and lawyers and all these and the private sector coming up with innovative ideas. It's the government creating that atmosphere so that the small business and the private sector can thrive. And if the government can do that, that would be super. Why do you have public works still building roads in the country? I don't get it. I don't understand it. Why is royalty not privatized? I don't get it. Why is there a Telco which is competing now with MTN and Orange for cell phones? Why are you doing? You are undermining the private sector. These are the little things that we are talking about. Support them. Don't undermine them. But let me read a few comments here. So Emmanuel Jackson says, totally agree with Mr. Eastman. Said earlier, if we've to go hungry sometime, so be it. But let's stop taking cash advances on contractual agreements for Liberia's resources. We need an internal strategy to harness what's left of our ore and extractive minerals. Ore can also produce electricity. Yes, another one here. Let's see what we have. Lenny Jr. says no system. I guess she she brought everything down to two words: no system. Um, Reincarnated Leo, what's that? Leo, I'll call him Leo, says that McGill helps to the people should be appreciated. Any form of help for that matter. Why can't the so-called opposition help too? I'll let you guys address that.
Okay, well, let me address that. Young man, we understand we are teaching our children to be grateful, and we understand that. What we are talking about here is when it is codified, when it's made into law, then it benefits everybody. And then when you talk about, because the new word in Liberia now is government continuity, which is good. But for it to continue, it has to be systemized, like you're talking about. We want it to be when McGill leaves tomorrow, when the next person comes in, they should be able to continue this because it will be the matter of law. They have to do it. So when we do the personal project, that's exactly what it is. Personal. Personality leaves, that's the end of that. And we don't want that to happen. So if some of the ideas are great, what they are doing is awesome. Why it is benefiting them and benefiting the folks, can we do it in a way that it benefits people in Grand Bassa, Nima, Lofa, the whole 15 counties? When you talk about the feeding programs, let us feed all the children, especially the major high school first, and then everybody else. But it should be in the form that it benefits everybody. Even if you categorize them and say, okay, government school first, and then we will subsidize to some degree 10% or 15% to the parochial school, Catholic school, Methodist school, that's fine. But it should be standardized to the point that when President Weah leaves and the next guy or girl comes in, that they be able to continue that. That's what we are talking about. Nobody is being ungrateful. We love what they are doing. Some of the ideas are great. Now we just got to take it to the legislature and say, gentlemen, we found some magic bullet that will work in certain areas. We need to do the school feeding programs. And for us to do it, we don't need to take money from the meager budget that we have and give it to the Lebanese to buy rice from them. But let us now encourage our local farmers to bring their food. We do the co-op thing. Everybody in Bassa, bring your food to number one compound, to Buchanan with warehouses, and then all the school in Grand Bassa County will be fed from that. Same thing in Montserrat, same thing. When we do that, then we're doing what Carnegie used to call permanent good.
Yeah.
That is not just something that we do because we are here, but permanent good. When he decided to use his money to build libraries around the nation, to introduce the library system in the United States, he called that permanent good, and definitely it is permanent good. So this is what we are talking about. When we talk about public policy, it is not about wearing ties, suit, and the title. We are talking about experience. Hands-on, have you done this before? Where have this been done before? We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Food feeding programs all over the place. Go to our nearest country that are doing it and see how it is working. Then we tweak it to our certification. We are running out of time. We got 14 more minutes here. So we're going to go around the table and thank you all. And then we'll go into closing. Let's start with Mr. Eastman. Mr. Eastman.
Yeah, you know, first of all, we have to always have a sense of gratitude, to God first, because we have an opportunity to make a difference tomorrow, and that if anything, that it means we can change where we are today. We don't have to continue the way it is. It's going to require us working together. I'm one that don't believe politics will solve the problem. I believe when we get people working together, when we got a good plan and we implement the plan, that's what's going to change Liberia. So anybody who comes up with a plan that we can all appreciate and embrace, then we can work toward changing Liberia. There are things that we can't change right away. It will be gradual. But in the meantime, once we get started and we're in, we still have to pray for our nation leaders. Yes, we have to pray for all of them because we want God to be a hand to be on them so that they do make the right decisions. They do things that will benefit all of us. All right. And definitely we know from our past experience that blaming one group, denigrating somebody because of their ethnicity, that doesn't work. No, all the one tribe not bad and all one tribe good. There's good and bad on the side. So why don't we find a way to appreciate each other while we go ahead? That's where I stop.
Thank you. Mr. Padmore?
Yes. We've said a lot. But I think leadership still matters. Leadership still matters. I was very young when I experienced 1980, and I wasn't a complete man when I experienced 1990. But even in a mix of all that killing and fighting, when they were able to sit at a table and select a leader in the Kingdom of Monrovia, they were able to figure some things out. It wasn't perfect, but they were able to somehow figure some things out. And I really believe my heart that if we are able, moving forward, to put in that leader, that these things will fall into place. These things that we've struggled with, these things that we think can happen, whether it comes to just property identification, basic things like saying, you know what, there will be no more building in the country unless you get a permit to build. You need a permit from the government to build your house. The government needs to come and inspect your plan, inspect your property, and make sure you are laying things where they need to be laid. In this country, before you even renovate your basement, you got to call the city. The city has to look at your plan and say, yes, this is okay. In the freest country in the world, if that can happen, why that can't happen in Liberia? That's employment. That's employment. We have 85% of unemployment. Let's employ people to actually do the work. People out there, let us start mapping up the places. All those things, But in order for us to do that, everything is going to boil down. You come back to the unitary state. Everything is going to boil down to this leader. This leader that has the energy, the insight, the innovation, the desire to work his behind off for Liberia. And probably won't get any good thank you, but that's how we are Liberian, that's how we do our thing. So, but that's where I stop right now.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. I see a lot of comments. We changed from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and some of you still transition smoothly. We appreciate that. You can call in anytime. We have the number usually scrolling. You can make comments if you want to debate a particular issue. There's no problem here. We will bring you on to discuss those issues. I think next week, Mr. Pham want to come on, Ben Pham wants to come on and deal with public policy, political parties. And I see he has problem with Cummings and Mr. Weir. So I told him to come on. Let's discuss this. And I'm glad that we have an ANC person here, and we have a CDC, and we have a neutral person. So you should have a very good company next time here. There are other issues that we discuss. If you have a particular issue that you are interested in that have not been addressed on the local media, or on the local level or the national level, bring it forth. Let's discuss that. You can be a guest. You can do that. One of the things I wanted to talk about real quick is I think you mentioned it, I think it's the MTM, the Liberian government is now trying to compete with the local folks. And that came about because businesses are now becoming very political. During the past election 2020, There were times when the opposition wanted an upper hand. They decided to either block out everybody else, to increase rates, to do everything to strangulate the government. And their solution was, well, if they're going to do this, then we always have to have a neutral way of disseminating information without relying on them. And that was one of the reasons. When I was appointed as vice president for the local chamber, they put me in charge of minority affairs because the minority black folk just did not know how to operate business to attract money and funding. So they wanted me to help because I came from the United Way. And one of the things that we developed was incubators. Every community had an incubator where people will go and we teach you how to develop your ideas and put them into business plan and all of that so you can be attractive to banks and all of that, how we can quantify your assets and all of that. So we need to do that. So if we are going to have a small business loan in Liberia per se, we need to have places where these folks can go and get trained first. You can't just go and give somebody a small business loan and say, here, $500, go sell your fish and make sure you pay me back. This is why they say the failure rate in Liberia on borrow loan is like 80%.
Yeah.
80% because we are not training folks. So those are us who are into this. We are telling the government, here we have Chamber of Commerce that is private, that does all of these things. Maybe Liberia, we are not at that level yet, but the government needs to step in to say, you know what, we are going to empower folks to be able to do this. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. This is great. We want to get into business. Liberian people, we need to do this. We can't wait for government. Mr. Padmore and Jabba, these people have begun the process. You graduate from the University of Liberia with a business degree. About 500 people graduate. You cannot get jobs. Get together. Put your ideas together. Somebody in finance, somebody in marketing. Put your ideas together. You can become a bigger fish seller. You can dry your fish. You can do it. You can mass produce. You can commercialize this stuff and become rich. Don't wear your suit and tie and go from agency to agency knowing that every agency has a capacity. They can only hire about 100 folk. When they hire those 100 folk, you can walk all you want. They cannot absorb you. So collaboration, partnership, that's what it's all about. We have to fail to succeed. My typical example is in Florida, Disney World. This man started 8 businesses and he failed 8 times. The final time he went broke and he moved in with his in-laws. While he was home, there were a lot of children in the home, in the community. He decided to sell small things. We say widow market, selling Kool-Aid and stuff. And the kids began to come to his house. And all of a sudden, he became the star. He said, you know what? Now I can build a place. I have a capture audience. And Disney World, you know now, is the largest of everything else. So you start small and then the idea grows. You can't wait for government to employ you, man. You got too many smart people in Liberia. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. If you have ideas that you want us to discuss, please bring it forward and we'll be able to do that. We usually leave you with the song that says we are all Liberians. If it's ready, we'll play. If not, then we'll just keep talking because that's what we do.
We are